Welcome to Protocol Particulars, the video interview series where we connect with individuals from the network about their ASAP protocols. For today's episode, I have with me Sonia García-Ruiz, who is a graduate student at University College London and is part of the Write-In Lab, which is part of Team Hardy. Hello, Sonia.
Hello, Devin.
How are
How are
you?
you? I'm good, thank you. You?
I'm doing well, thank you. So thank you for joining me on today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about your protocol called Check the Integrity of a Dataset Stored on Amazon
Yeah.
S3. Before we get into that, I was hoping that you could briefly tell us about Team Hardy's ASAP project.
Sure, yeah, no problem. In the Hardy's team, we are working like it's a interdisciplinary group. I would say a world-class interdisciplinary group, and the main aim of this team is to understand the variable rate of progression and also spread of Parkinson's disease in the human brain. And this is with the final goal of trying to slow down this progression. And the people working in this team is mainly focused in 4 major themes, which are functional genetics, high throughput cell biology, and also there is another team working on human molecular pathology and also mouse transgenic models. So yeah, it's quite interdisciplinary team. I'm glad to be part of it.
It sounds like it. And so I imagine with all of those different themes that you guys are working on, you're generating really a lot of large data sets. So I was
Yeah.
hoping you could tell us some of the challenges with maintaining those data sets.
Yeah, so I think that one of the first challenges when using large data sets is where to store them, because they can be quite large. And so storage is sometimes an issue. And another difficulty when working with large data sets is also the computing, because normally a file can be in the order of terabytes if we are talking about long-read RNA sequencing data, and loading that into the memory of the software that you are working, to analyze the data, then can require a lot of memory computing power. So I would say that these are the 2 main challenges in order to work with large data sets, which is the storage and the computing. And there are other as well, which can be transferring the data, moving the data between servers, sharing the data, and because the transmission of the data can be slow sometimes, and can sometimes, because you're always transferring a file over the internet, can happen some issues, data loss package, that at the end can really corrupt some of the files that you are transferring. And that is a bit of the origin of the tool that I developed, like the seed for that tool.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about these tools that help to prevent any alteration to the data when you're going to store them?
Sure. So I guess that it depends a little bit on the system or on the operating system platform in which you're working, because in that the mechanisms to try to detect if there is any issue with the data to protect it might differ. But I'm more familiar with the cloud environment, and in particular with AWS. And I know that in the AWS there are some alerts that it is possible to create an alert, to receive a notification if particular files have been changed, modified, deleted. And that could be a way of trying to monitor changes in the files, in the cloud, at least.
So I think you actually have developed a tool for this. Can you tell us a little bit more about your tool?
Yeah, sure. So the reason why I developed the tool is because so we were using the storage platform from AWS. This is called S3. S3 stands for Secure Storage, and don't quite remember as a service or system. I think it's Secure System Storage, something similar, and that is the 3 S's. So AWS S3 refers to the storage service from Amazon, which is quite good. You know, you can just upload your files, and it's super quick because AWS has an API. So from any Linux system, that is the operating system that I use the most for work, it is quite easy to log in, you know, to transfer data. But then I found that every time that I was using AWS to back up our data, but not only my data from my colleagues on my own data, but from other people as well, from my group. So I was feeling a bit responsible of, you know, I'm not super sure if the actual data transmission has been completed successfully. Because, you know, sometimes internet can break down a little bit for a millisecond, but that can affect the packages, because a file is normally split in tiny packages which are transmitted over the internet, you know, and then when they arrive to the remote location, all of them are joined together. So I wasn't super sure if after every data transmission, then the files that were in the remote server, in this case on AWS, were the same files that I actually had in my local computer, because, you know, some of them could have been corrupted over the transmission. So one way of checking that for me was manually going to AWS on this storage system, checking the size of the file, comparing that with my local file, and you know, if it is exactly the same size, but this is unlikely that a package has been lost. But that was impossible to do with a data set that sometimes is thousands of files, impossible. And also could be quite important data, sensitive data. You know, you transfer something, you back up something to free up space in your cluster, then you remove that data in your local system to find out n number of months after that the actual copy that you have on your on AWS is not correct. And if you have deleted the original files, it can be pretty awful. So I thought that I should better develop a tool that could, using the AWS API, that could, after a data transmission was finished, could connect to AWS and checked all the MD5. There is a number, a unique number that represents the integrity of the data. And then I could double check that with the copy of the files that I had in my local computer. And if they were the same, then the integrity of the data was guaranteed. And that's the reason why I decided to develop this.
Thanks for describing that, Sonia. So it sounds to me like this tool is going to be really helpful in preventing like significant delays that will happen in projects. Thinking more about the protocol itself, it's meant to assist users who are actually utilizing the tool that you created. So I'm wondering if there is anything that users should keep in mind prior to or while going through this protocol.
Yeah. So I would say that the first thing is that in order to test the integrity of the data that is on AWS, the users need to still keep the original version of the files in a local system, in the local computer, in the local server, because the way in which this tool works is to connect to AWS. So the user also needs an account on AWS and permission access, at least read access to the files that are stored in a particular bucket. Bucket is a folder in AWS. And then this tool obtains or checks the integrity number, unique number for the files stored on the remote server, but then needs to compare those numbers with the reference, and the reference would be the original files. So if the user has, unfortunately, removed or deleted the original files, this tool cannot be used. So I normally recommend my colleagues or any people asking me, for some help, to run this tool just right after of finishing a transmission, a data transmission, because then you will make sure that the transmission is okay, and you can sort of forget a little bit about it, to be more. So that would be one requirement, to have the original files in the local computer, access to AWS, at least read access to a bucket that you want to double check the integrity. And this tool has been widely tested, because this has attached a peer-reviewed paper as well. So has been really extensively tested, but in Linux systems. So if the user has a Windows or a backhouse computer, I cannot, say that a guarantee that it's going to work as expected. So it has been tested on Linux mainly, and also requires some dependencies as well. For instance, because if this is being used or is going to be used from a Linux system, in order to connect to AWS, it needs the software that understands AWS commands. This is the AWS command line interface. So some dependencies like that would be needed to be installed beforehand. But I would say that would be the main four elements that I would say that a user would need to take into account before using this tool.
Thanks, Sonia. So before we go, is there any other last minute advice that you wanted to give anyone?
So I would say that using this tool, I think is really useful for peace of mind. When using data that has costed money to generate that, and people's time to produce results, when baking that up, baking up the making a backup of the data, it's better to make sure that the actual transfer is okay, and the files that you have just transmitted to transferred to AWS, and the actual data that you wanted to transfer. So I just would say that that this is a nice tool, and if anyone wants to use it, I'll be happy to help. And that there is also a Docker version to try to avoid the operating system limitation and the installation of the dependencies. So that should make the usage of this tool slightly easier. And that I'm happy to help to anyone that would like to know more about this.
Thanks so much, Sonia.
No problem.